Now we're midway through February and it's time to talk about the worst films I feel of January 2017. Now we all know what January is like when it comes to movies. It's the dumping ground, it's the trash bin of films. And just like most Januaries, it was filled with a lot of forgettable movies and a lot of bad movies and just downright horrible movies. There are some bright spots, of course, when it comes to January, because sometimes we get limited release movies of the previous year that get wide releases in January, and so those were good and those were things we could look forward to. But let's talk about the worst of January in my opinion. I've seen about 18 films that I consider January 2017 films, but there are two other movies that I haven't seen that probably could make it in the worst of if I had seen them. And it's just judging off the trailer and plot, because maybe I'll end up liking these movies, who knows, but these are two movies that probably could have made the list. Underworld Blood Wars, did not see it yet. And The Axe Murderers of Valencia, or something like that. Alright, just like my best of January 2017, I'm going to make a top 5 worst films. And dishonorable mentions would be Claire in Motion, where in my review I was completely down the middle. And so if you hate this movie, I completely agree with you. And if you love this movie, I completely agree with you. I have the same reasons of why I love it and why I hate it. But it was pretty boring, I feel, and not executed well enough to really grasp and really delve deep in the true meaning of the movie. I love the fact that it's a movie that you have to piece together, but at that same time it was done in a boring way. And my other dishonorable mention would be XXX Return of Xander Cage. Haven't reviewed it yet. Maybe it'll end up being 5 when I rewatch it and give it a real score. Right now, my 5 and 6 could be changed up. So my number 5 currently worst of January 2017 is Monster Trucks. Now I didn't feel it was as bad or as much of an abomination as most people feel. For me, I found it to be an average meh movie. And to be honest, there's some parts of this movie where it felt like it was meant to be satire, where it felt like it was meant to be self-aware. And those moments kept me from feeling like it was an abomination. It kept me feeling like, okay, maybe it's played for laughs. Maybe this isn't meant to be serious. But on the other hand, there is moments where I felt were just plain bad. And some moments where it was so bad it was good. So Monster Trucks, I'm kind of like in the middle with. I'm kind of like a 2-star range when it comes to what I feel about the movie. My number 4 is Arsenal. And I have a pretty long review, I feel, of this movie. You might just want to go to that because I go into a little bit more detail. Nick Cage was entertainingly bad, but also really boringly bad, and just completely did not fit with this movie. When you have a movie that's trying to be gritty and trying to be realistic and serious, and have a villain played by Nick Cage when he's going at his craziest, then instead you have unintentional humor and you have people laughing at Nick Cage and his performance and not really being serious. It's not gonna make your movie serious or gritty. And so those moments really clashed in this film, and it's a really below average action film. I see potential in it, but unfortunately a lot of that potential is squandered and it just feels bland. My number 3, Resident Evil, the final chapter. I've been accepting of all the other Resident Evil films. I'm a big fan of the games and love the games. And sometimes video game fans of Resident Evil hate the Resident Evil movies because it feels like an alternate reality. It doesn't get the characters right. It feels too far from the games. And when I think about that and just think of it as an alternate universe, I can be accepting of the Resident Evil films. Resident Evil The Final Chapter not only felt like a fuck you to the video game fans of the franchise, but also felt like a fuck you to the people that were fans of the Resident Evil movies, because it feels like an alternate reality version of the movies, which are already an alternate reality version of the games. They completely rewrite the history of the movies as if this was a Transformers movie. The side characters are completely forgettable and really bland, even to Resident Evil standards. But I probably could have been a lot more accepting of this film if it wasn't for the action sequences, because I couldn't tell a damn thing about what was happening in this movie. When it came to fight scenes, and there was cuts not even a second long in different angles and there's like a 23-second long sequence that's cut over 20 times. Probably close to 30 times. I miscounted. Hardcore Henry did not give me a headache. Jason Bourne did not give me a headache. I seen both of those movies twice in theaters and had a blast seeing both of them. Resident Evil, the final cut, before it was even a third of the way done, I was bowing my head, holding my head, closing my eyes, and just having a terrible time, feeling like I was going to be sick. If there's a person out there that saw this movie and had a seizure from it, I would completely understand. Easily the worst Resident Evil movie ever made, to be honest. And it's just because of the editing and action sequences alone. My number 2 is The Bye Bye Man, our January horror movie of this year, and just really outlandish. There are some people that feel this is a parody, and I could kind of understand that because there are moments that are so bad it's hilarious, but it's so stereotypical of horror that it doesn't even feel like a parody. Like, if the reason you're making fun of the film is because it's stereotypical and generic, well, that's what other films are like in the horror genre. There are other horror films that are considered bad, that are generic, overused, overdone, and have such a plot line that is just so much cliches and stereotypes. Those aren't considered parodies, so why is this one? Again, there are some really outlandish moments that made me laugh out loud, but when it comes to the outlandish moments, they're so far and few between, and they're a lot more fun making fun of them and talking about them than it is actually watching them. Also add in some of the worst acting that I've seen so far this year, and you got a really bad movie. But at least there's some moments in The Bye Bye Man where it was so bad it's hilarious, and really hilarious to talk about and rant about. When it comes to my number 1 worst film of January 2017 so far, it's already a competitor for easily one of the worst films I've so far seen this year, and that is Bad Kids of Crestview Academy. Now, this movie was easily supposed to be self-aware. It was supposed to be a spoof, supposed to be a parody. Unfortunately, it was not funny in the slightest to me. I didn't laugh at all. I didn't feel like it was thrilling enough. It just felt bland, stupid, and bad. I pretty much didn't care about any of the characters, didn't care who lived or who died. At the end, it does go over the top and becomes more of an action parody, but it's too late by the time it actually happens, because I'm already bored and already hating this film by then. And I know this is probably a cheap movie, but it has really, really awful CGI. Painfully looking CGI. And green screen. And what's really crazy is this is actually a sequel to a movie, and I had no idea until after I saw this film for the first time. And after seeing the first movie, I feel the first movie, even though I never finished it, is a far superior film. Bad Kids of Crestview Academy may have more style than the first film, but that style just makes it look really stupid in my opinion. Especially when all the deaths turn into a comic book version of that death. It just didn't look right. There are some people that are going to like this film, but for me, I really hated this film, and it's going to be a very good contender when it comes to the worst films of the year, I feel. I'm sure it might still get bumped out because, like I said, we're only midway through February, but this is a contender, for sure. And the worst thing about Bad Kids of Crestview Academy isn't anything to do with the movie. No, it's the score from the audience on Rotten Tomatoes. It makes me really feel that I bet a lot of people either involved with the film or had friends with the film really made fake review accounts to bump up the score in the audience level, because critics-wise, it has a 0%. Only 7 reviews, but a 0%. With an average score of 3.8 out of 10, which is pretty bad. The audience score, however, as I'm currently filming this, I'm looking at it right now, 99%, with an average of 4.5 out of 5 with 1,216 reviews. And guess what? None of those reviews have any writing in it whatsoever. So there's no, let me look again. Yeah, when it comes to audience, there's no written reviews of it whatsoever. All 1,216 of these votes just did the stars and didn't add any actual review or writing to them. So it makes me think that a lot of these people, or the majority of the people, were probably people that were just bumping the score up for the audience rating. There probably is some legitimate rating in that, which is why it's 99% with a 4.5 out of 5 rather than 100% with a 5 out of 5 like Forsaken had for the longest time. Now let me clarify. I'm not telling you to go out on Rotten Tomatoes and give it a bad score just because I say so, and just because it feels like a lot of people did upscore it so that it had a good review in the audience section. But I implore you, if you actually want to legitimately see this movie, and if you've seen my movie review of it and still want to see it, just go and see it, have your own opinion, whether you like it or dislike it, then give it a normal rating that you would honestly feel about the film. But if that's too much work, then don't bother at all giving it a bad score, because I don't want you to give it a bad score just because I say so and you haven't watched the film. Watch the film first. Make your own opinions on it. I will say there are sites that you probably could see it for free. That's all I'm saying. So have you seen any of the movies I mentioned? Go ahead and comment below what you thought about them. And out of the movies that you consider 2017 January films, what are the worst films you've seen this year for January? Go ahead and comment below. Let me know what you thought. Now, if you like this countdown, go ahead and subscribe and check out my movie reviews and countdowns of 2015, 2016, or 2017. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.